Pakistan's economic crisis is hitting its poorest hardest. Inflation is at a 50-year high and food has become unaffordable for millions. The impact is proving deadly.
A parent's absolute despair. This father is grieving the death of his 7-year-old boy. Just days ago, he was killed in a crash. The boy was among women and children who had gathered at this factory in Karachi to collect donations of money and food. At least 11 people died.
There were no rules at the factory, and my son got trampled there. I'm totally devastated. There are other people like me whose children were killed. Women who had nothing to eat went there. Can't the government see that people are dying of hunger?
There have been other deadly crashes too, ever since the holy month of Ramadan began, a time when business owners often give out donations, especially to the poor. This year, demand has been overwhelming. People stealing flour in broad daylight has also become a common sight. At this distribution center, police fired weapons in the air to disperse people who had gathered to collect free flour. Pakistan is going through its worst economic crisis in years, with inflation climbing to more than 30%. Last year's devastating floods, which destroyed many crops, have worsened the current economic turmoil. Food prices are surging, and so is poverty.
The number of people needing aid has increased. The conditions people are living in, especially the working class, is not as it's been before. They used to spend 50% of their income on food, but now they have to spend 70 to 80%.
The unrest and uncertainty are formidable challenges for the country of around 220 million people, many of whom are fighting for survival.
Joining me now in the studio for more context is DW reporter Pinish Javed. Pinish, welcome. Do we know how many people in Pakistan are currently food insecure?
There is 35 million people in Pakistan, which is almost half the population of Thailand. So this number of people in Pakistan are food insecure, which means they're not getting nutritious meals every day. And the UN says out of this, almost 8 million in Pakistan face emergency levels of food insecurity. But many economists believe that the current food crisis is pushing many more into poverty. And the scenes that we have seen in the report at the distribution center, it shows that people are risking their lives just to get some flour for their families. And most of the people who are lining up for hours are women, and most of the people who have been killed and injured in these crashes are women, because women are seeing their children go hungry and they will risk anything they can just to feed their children. So I think the situation is really dire.
So in many ways, these scenes that we are seeing in these distribution centers across Pakistan articulate really the economic crisis that has gripped the country.
I think the scenes at these distribution centers have exposed the levels of poverty in Pakistan. Pakistan is going through its worst economic crisis in years. Pakistan doesn't have enough money to pay for vital imports, which means the industries are being impacted. So we see textile factories are being shut down, mobile assembling factories are being closed, and they're firing people. And the people that we see at these distribution centers, they were not the most poorest or the most vulnerable people. They were maybe factory workers. They belong to maybe low middle class of Pakistan. But because now they have lost their jobs, they do not have any other source of income. They were already hand to mouth. They didn't have any savings. So now they have suddenly become poor, and they have no option but to stand in lines for hours just to get some food for their family.
A crisis that's pushing people into poverty. But in addition to this, Binish, people's monthly budgets have also been hit, haven't they?
Yeah, so I'll give you an example. Just in March, the prices were up 35% as compared to last year. So it means the prices of basic food items such as flour, rice, lentils, it has gone so up that now people are forced to spend most of their income on food, and they have to cut down their expenses drastically. For instance, I know there are families who have pulled out their children children from school, or who are trying to admit their children to schools who are closer to their home so they can save some transportation cost. In some families, they have maybe taken one child out of school, so they're just letting maybe one child go to school.
Right.
They're making decisions such as selling their cars and buying motorbikes. Because the expense of food and groceries has gone so up, they are forced to reduce their expenses.
So basic question, what is the government doing about all this then?
I think the government is completely clueless on how to resolve this economic crisis, and often they make the situation worse. For instance, this free flour scheme is a flawed plan because Pakistan already has systems in place that the government could have used to reach the most vulnerable, and to be, or the government could have used this to give donations in a more respectful way. Pakistan also has a vast network of NGOs that could have been used to deliver flour. So I think the government, and some critics say the government tried to use the scheme to gain political advantage, but I think there was so much of bad press because of deaths and injuries and the crushes that I think they probably will not get any political advantage out of this situation.
When you call the government clueless and you're talking about political advantage, the government itself is in crisis because there is a political crisis as well that's gripping Pakistan.
Yeah, Pakistan is also going through a political crisis since Pakistan's former Prime Minister Imran Khan was ousted. He has been demanding elections. The government is not accepting that demand. There is a stalemate. It seems like both parties are fighting to gain political power. So they're fighting for their own interests and gains. And they have brought their battles to the streets and to the courts. And in all of that chaos, they have forgotten that people of Pakistan are suffering. They are dying of hunger. They are dying in these crushes, waiting in lines just to get some food for their families.
Do you see things getting better, Binesh?
In the short run, I think the only hope was the loan payment of IMF. Pakistan has been negotiating with IMF to get this payment of $1.1 billion. But so far, it has not been able to fulfill all the requirements and conditions of the IMF. In the short run, this could be a solution if Pakistan is able to get this loan payment, which is a part of the 6.5 billion loan program. But in the long run, I think Pakistan has to overhaul its system. It has to invest in its young people, in increasing their capacity, in increasing their education. It has to improve the education institutes of the country, has to invest in short and medium enterprises, which are the backbone of economy. And it has to take, for instance, also become less dependent on imported fuel. So it has to make big decisions to make the economic system of the country better.
Binesh, we'll leave it there. Thanks so much for coming in.
You're welcome.